Welcome to Next Level Operators, where we spotlight the people building high-performing businesses and how they're thinking about what's next. Today we've got John O'Brien. He's the owner of Rome Roof and Solar in Central Texas. He's an Army veteran and he's been in roofing since 2017, cut his teeth working storms in the early days, and has since launched Rome in 2023. What stands out to me about John is that he's a standards first kind of guy. Do it right the first time. He's built a brand that wins trusts. It executes. It's got an amazing customer experience, and that's something that shows up clearly through their 300 plus 5-star Google reviews, which I'm excited to dig into and actually hear what it takes to build that kind of reputation so quickly. Oh, John, welcome.
Hey, thanks. Great to be on here with you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think the logical place to start is just, with you and how you got into this industry. You told me you didn't set out to start a roofing company, but it seems like you're kicking ass at it. Can you walk us through how you found your way into the industry and what's kept you in it?
Yeah, thanks. So when I was transitioning out of the Army, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And one of the things that was pretty apparent to me was that I was going to get into something with unlimited income potential. And so I knew that I wanted to get into sales of some sort. I just didn't know what widget I would be selling, if that makes sense. My wife was in real estate. I did not want to get into the same industry as her in case we had another market turn down like an '08. And the idea of us both being up the same creek, so to speak, was a little scary. So I was looking for other opportunities, and a buddy of mine actually owned a roofing company. And so I'd been approached by a different type of roofing company to come do management for them. And I ended up talking to my friend who owned a residential roofing company in town and was asking him, what do you think about the opportunity? And he said, well, if you want to get into roofing, I'd be more than happy to. He had all 1099 sales guys. He's like, it's basically no sweat off my back. If you want to come try to see if you got what it takes, I'll get you some business cards made and a polo, and you can just go get a ladder and you'll be on your way.
If you can make me money, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, how most roofers, get started in the industry. And so I did that, and I just started consuming as much content as I could online. There wasn't a lot back then on the internet, but there was a few people putting out things about roofing sales and how the insurance process worked. It was an intriguing business to me. So I did a ride along with a couple of the existing sales reps in the company, kind of saw what it was about, thought, this is pretty cool. Like, I'm not scared of heights, so it's a natural fit. And I get to meet new people every single day and help them navigate a very complicated process. And the more and more I dug into it, the more I just kind of fell in love with the industry of like how complicated the whole insurance process can be and how overwhelmed homeowners would feel. And it was like, yeah, I mean, when it's your one, because most people are only going to replace their roof maybe 2 or 3 times in their whole life. But when you're doing it every single day, that very complicated process becomes surprisingly simple. And so I picked up on it real quick and thought, well, I can really help somebody out. And I knew that there was a lot of people in the industry making really good money. And so I thought, hey, this is a perfect fit. Was really enjoying it, started making more money as a part-time job than I was making in the Army while I was transitioning, which that was super exciting. And then Hurricane Harvey hit, and there wasn't a bunch of guys in the company that wanted to go storm chase. But when you're brand new in the industry, I hadn't built up a referral network. I didn't have a lot of people that knew me, liked me, and trusted me in the roofing industry in my local market. And so I just thought, well, I'll go down there and see what this is all about. Went down, made a couple good connections, did really well in that storm, was able to help a lot of people. But yeah, and I kind of learned the wind side of the business, how wind damage and fighting through, which is a much more difficult sell to the insurance company on full replacement than hail. But it was a huge storm, huge opportunity. Ended up making a lot of money, like my first 3 months down in the storm, and thought, okay, well, I'm hooked. I got the bug, like this, this is what I'm going to do. And then I really enjoyed roofing sales for quite a few years, just kind of as a lone wolf salesperson, and enjoyed kind of for once in my adult life, not being responsible for other people, just solely going out and like eating what you kill. Super fun.
Totally. Yeah.
But then it was like old habits die hard. And I started getting the feeling like, I miss being around people I miss mentoring people. I miss leading. And so I would naturally, as kind of a top producer in the company, when the younger reps would come in, they would want to ask questions. And I always found it like much more fulfilling to help them. Like it got to the point where I'd be more excited helping them close their first, $10,000 roof than I was getting about closing a $50,000 roof. To me, it had just kind of become a little bit of check the box. I was losing my passion for it because it was getting very repetitive. But I got really excited and amped up whenever I could help them overcome some limiting beliefs that they had, or some sort of objection that they're like, man, I keep getting stumped by this objection in the sales process. I don't know how to get past it. And I would give them like a little golden nugget, and then they'd come back all excited, like, dude, it worked. And so that like really fired me up and got me excited. And so I started saying, well, maybe I should build a team. And that was kind of the model at the old company was, well, you could, if you want to, you can bring on other sales reps underneath you, and then you can mentor them and train them, and then you get a little override on their sales. And I was like, that's kind of cool. It's kind of like mailbox money. It's not passive income, but like it takes the pressure off of how many sales I've got to do, and then I can help them. Anyway, so I build a big team. We end up having a couple of really good years. And then as the politics of the industry, when you're working for somebody else, it's just the nature of the beast. It's their company. It's not your company. And so they can make decisions about their company and the direction they want to go and the people they want to hire that you don't necessarily agree with, but it's like tough cookie. It's not your business. And so
Totally.
I had multiple conversations. I felt like, I guess this was kind of the impetus of me starting my own company, was there was quite a few people on the team, not my team, but adjacent teams, my peers, that I did not like how they were operating. There were some things that were getting back to me through the community of kind of like how they were representing the brand, the quality of installs they were doing, their lack of, it's almost like they just looked at it like this is purely about the money. It's not about actually providing a good customer service or providing a really good product. And it's like, you don't want to throw shade, but like there was people doing things that you don't like in the industry. And
You
so
don't
I
want to
said,
represent you,
what's that?
and that you don't want to represent you.
Yeah, of course. So if you care about your own reputation, you're going, I'm pouring my heart and soul into this business and this brand, and people now associate me with this brand.
Totally.
So, if not that the owner didn't care about the brand, he did. It's just like we had different concerns about the brand. And so him not being in the front line doing sales, he wasn't coming up with some of those objections. Like, well, I heard about this. And what about, well, this guy's eating deductibles. Why are you telling me it's against the law? And I'm going, we're in the same company. Then fast forward, there's lots of changes went on when the company compensation models changing, personnel changing here and there, and then ultimately just kind of getting fed up with a lack of control. And you realize you're just kind of pounding your head against the wall and going, if I care this deeply about the customer experience, about the brand, about how it should be, then maybe you should just go do your own thing. And so I had that conversation with the owner of the company, and I said, hey, I love you, want nothing but the best for you, but we got to go separate ways. And he understood. He was basically like, I saw this coming. It was only a matter of time, but gave me his blessing, left. We're still on really good terms. Just actually spent a week in Mexico with him on a trip. So super fun. But then, yeah, that's kind of how we started Roam. And I just set out on this path of going, okay, well, I now developed this vision of what a roofing company should be. And then now, all right, now there's no more excuses. You don't get to blame it on, if it's not what how you envision it, that's on you, buddy, because it is your company. So it's been a fun, exciting challenge to build
So I
that.
was just gonna say, but how fun to like be able to create yours, and like really mold it to how, like you just described all these experiences, and then like taking that, yeah, you took the word. I was like, how fun.
But then also there's lots of challenges and things you don't know what you don't know. And so, it's very easy to sit on the sideline as the sales guy and look at the owner of the company and be like, man, he doesn't do anything, or, what does he even do with his time? And then
Totally.
you're sitting in that seat, and then all of a sudden you're going, oh, there's actually a lot to the back end of this business that I didn't really give him credit for. handling cash flow and the finances and all the things that go into running a business that's not just sales and marketing.
Yeah, yeah, no. I was running business before I got into roofing sales. And so then when I got into it, it was like, oh, this is nice. I don't have to worry about that. And I'm making more money than I was,
Yeah.
running my own business without the headache. But then, yeah, you get a little itch again.
Yeah. There are times that I miss just being a salesperson, a lot less responsibility, actually making a little bit more money. But it, it's, it's cool having something that's mine that I get to build and getting to mentor the guys and watching some of these young salesmen come on the team and then grow and, mature and morph into men. And it's kind of like, oh man, this is kind of cool. Being able to make people better men through roofing, which
Mm.
is fun.
That is fun. Yeah. So I got to speak to the fact that, like, for people watching right now, I'm like grinning through your conversation, and they're probably like, why is Jesse just sitting there grinning? And I remember now why I was looking forward to this conversation is because when we spoke, like, there's just so much overlap between our stories. Like, literally started the exact same year you started.
Yep.
You went to Harvey, I went to Irma, like, got into it the exact same way. So it's just really funny, and like how, you evolved, and then like kind of, yeah, what your impetus was. Like, basically just things weren't being done the way you wanted, and I can really relate with that. Yeah, so that's cool. So you were in the Army for a while before doing all this.
Mhm.
Army's pretty big impact. Probably your personality was such that you wanted to go into the Army, but is there stuff that you take from your habits or your way of thinking from that time that show up in your business today?
Yeah, I think so. I would say being used to working long hours, and kind of operating under a guiding principles, a mission, having a clear, defined mission, and understanding the importance of leadership in any organization. And that, like, if you don't give a clear vision and mission, a commander's intent, then soldiers are going to do what they want to do. And so, and then also the importance of delegation and like trusting, like kind of not having centralized leadership, but delegating that, it's understanding that you can delegate authority, but not responsibility. So I like the extreme ownership aspect of like Jocko Willink, talks about extreme ownership of saying everything's my fault. Ultimately, I don't have to do everything. So like I could delegate the authority for other people to make decisions to do other things. But but I've empowered them to do that. And so then if they fail, it's ultimately my fault.
Yeah,
And so then
totally.
there's something that I didn't do. I didn't set them up for success. So I think that sort of mentality, that ownership mentality, that attention to detail, and just kind of overall discipline, having morals that guide you. I get in trouble all the time, not in trouble, but my wife says, like, I get obsessed about little things. And I'm like, well, it's about the principle. She's like, it doesn't have to be about the principle. Like, I'm just,
Mm.
no, it's not about the dollar. It's about the
Mm.
principle of the thing.
Yeah, and the details matter. Like,
The details do matter. Now, but I do have to remind myself, nobody's dead. Nobody's going to die here. Like it's not a life or death situation. And that's where, like, when you're in the Army or in the military in general, I don't want to just say the Army, but it's your decisions. Very likely, a lot of times you take them you stress on the details because it can be a life or death situation, and like your decisions can cost somebody their life if you're not prepared. So it's kind of like, do you take the same level of intensity into a pre-call plan before a sales appointment, saying like, I'm going to be as prepared as possible walking into this homeowner's house as you would mission planning for a mission? It's like, well, I mean, it's kind of hard to go there mentally of saying like, yeah, I'm preparing just as hard, but it is kind of has the same principle of like, and it's worth doing. It's worth doing right.
yeah, yeah. And I've had to struggle and find that balance of like not going overboard with that, right? Like, I'll get caught up in like trying to make things perfect to a point where like maybe it's a waste of time or something. I'm just like trying to find that also is like, as an owner, it's like, oh, I want this to be perfect. At what point is it good enough? And that's for me, that's always been a hard thing to figure out, efficiency versus perfection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I struggle with that all the time of like, done is better than perfect. I have to remind myself, I kind of have to preach to myself, done is better than perfect.
my brother-in-law is a great example, and this guy just gets shit done, builds houses and like just makes decisions, and he builds beautiful homes, but he just gets through stuff.
Yeah.
And, and I'm like, yeah, him, and we work at a different pace, and there's benefits to both, but he's a good example because he does get shit done, and and it's good, but he moves quickly. And anyways, so
Good.
As far as your role in your company, where are you most involved on a day-to-day basis, and where does your team carry the load?
Yeah, I try to look at myself as kind of a key utility back. So one of my, I don't know, I wouldn't say guiding principles, but one of my thoughts early on was I didn't want to. Well, I actually had this conversation with my wife last night. It's when you're starting a company, there's kind of two paths you could take. You can be your best salesperson, and then, you can kind of build a support system around yourself. And then you slowly start hiring more salespeople. And then there's this transition period of if you're going to scale and grow, you have to stop being it's like the E myth, right? Like you get entrepreneurs get trapped working in the business, like they're the number one salesperson or whatever. And then they go through the struggle of trying to replace themselves, which is hard and takes time. Or you kind of go the other route where you say, I'm not going to work in the business. I'm going to just work on the business. But then you have more overhead. You're constantly training, mentoring, and, empowering other people to do their things. But the revenue and the profit is not there in the beginning. So then like you're taking a massive pay cut in order to do that, right? Which is hard. So then it's like, choose your hard. It is what it is. I don't think there's any way to get around one of those two paths. I chose the latter path in the beginning. I could see the advantages of me being in sales but where I wanted to go with the company long term was not, I didn't want to go through that transition period of trying to figure out how do I pull myself out. I'd already gone through that transition period working for the other company where I'd stopped doing direct sales, where I was actually out sitting down with homeowners, running my own clients, trying to manage my own pipeline while also managing other people's and at the company in their pipeline. So to me, it's like I could only serve one master. And I was not able, I found, and maybe it's just I'm limited, but I'm sure there's superstars out there that could do it. But I was either failing my team or I was failing my clients. I wasn't able to like give 100% effort in this and be a rockstar salesperson while also managing a team. And then, or I was doing really well at managing the team, but failing the client. So it was one of the two. I was failing one of the two. So I had made the decision early on that I'm not, when I started Rome, that I was not going to sell for Rome. Now you're in every interaction, you're kind of, you could look at it like Grant Cardone, like selling or be sold, right? Like every interaction is a sales situation. And my job is to sell the brand, sell the company. I'm out in the community networking. I'm selling the guys on the opportunity, helping them understand how to become better salespeople. And I'm more than happy and oftentimes do sit down with them when they have a difficult client or they have a really important deal that they want to get across the finish line. I'm more than happy to kind of inject into that situation as the owner and help out and help get something a little push, but I'm not managing my own pipeline. I don't have my own clients that I'm calling on and following up with daily. Um, so from the sales side, it's more of just like mentorship, guidance, training, being kind of that key person that can step in when things get hard or they need a little help. And then from the marketing standpoint, it's like working closely with my wife, who we brought on board to run the marketing side of the business, just to make sure that like our brand voice and how we want to be perceived is controlled,
Hmm.
and like what avenues we're, going to be marketing and advertising, helping the operations side of like systemizing the business of saying, what things can we simplify? What things can we eliminate from the process? What things can we automate from the process? What things can we delegate in the process? With AI tools and different things, automations that we can build in the CRM, or are there things that we can take some of these mundane day-to-day tasks that are just time vampires for you and get you focused on the most efficient dollar producing activities, that we can align you with.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. Yeah, you're speaking my language when you start talking about those systems, and that is where my mind went in roofing, right? Like, as I got bored of sales, I got into that. It's like that's how I started. I was like doing this thing over and over. How can I evolve as a person within this industry? And it got into that. And when I see your 315 5-star Google reviews, I'm like, these guys are systemized. Like they're focused on details. They're focused on systems, because it takes that. And it's not that hard. It just takes you doing it, putting energy towards it, and it's cool that you guys are doing that. So I guess as far as where you focus your energy to keep standards high, you just mentioned a bunch of things. Is there an area in particular that demands your attention more in order to keep standards high?
I think right now it's training and mentoring the sales team. And it's just getting them, we're kind of in a transition right now, the whole industry, where for a long time we've been primarily insurance related, storm related, or insurance driven, I guess, based in our company. So a lot of the revenue and opportunities that we have every year come from insurance claims. Insurance companies, when you have hailstorms, windstorms, whatever, that are damaging people's roofs, that is what's driving the demand. Well, for years now, we've seen insurance companies are raising people's deductibles, they're gutting people's policies, they're getting less and less coverage, more and more exclusions, higher and higher deductibles. What you're starting to see is that people's actual financial investment in their own home is increasing. When we got started, you remember there was people that had $250, $500 deductibles. They were starting to get rare at that point, but you still ran across them. It's common to then you start seeing these percentage deductibles, and then now it's 2%, 3%, 4%. Sometimes we'll have people that have a $20,000 roof with a $16,000 deductible,
Yeah.
and you're like,
I ran into that recently.
yeah, for sure.
Oh,
So it's like, well, and then they've got an ACB policy, and it's so really they got $500.
they don't have insurance.
No, they don't have insurance. So yeah, they got a $500 towards a $20,000 roof, and so we have to change and adapt to keep up with the changing times. So one of the focuses one of the things I'm trying to focus on is how to get us out of this insurance storm driven kind of business model into more of a retail financing model. And I think everyone's trying to make that switch. For a long time, I was hesitant about financing just because I'm like, man, there's so many. Well, I'll give you a case in point example. I won't name the company, but they're a big nationwide roofing company. And they had, there's this neighborhood in our market that are like 2-story small roofs, 2-story homes, kind of like a box, right? So you can imagine big square footage, but small roof profile.
Yep.
Which means that means big square footage, higher home value, bigger deductible, smaller roof, not a great combination if you're a storm chaser. And so, but I was seeing, so what ends up happening is you got a lot of roofing companies that were racing to the bottom, trying to bid these jobs to see who could be the cheapest. And this one company who is very well trained salespeople, national company that's got a big name in the industry, and they were doing financing kind of before anybody else was. And they kind of came in, and I was seeing they were selling these roofs that we would have sold with no extra quality. I mean, same roof, same GAF Timberline HDZ roof for what we were at, like, I think at the time, 300 a square or something, right? And they're like 1,700 a square. And I'm going, how? And these people are happy about it. They feel like they got a good deal. And I'm like, what? And they're selling their home, having to pay off this loan. And I'm just kind of blowing my mind of like, why are these people paying this much? Then you start realizing they're getting gouged, but it's because this company's offering financing. So they're not saying, hey, we're charging you, $60,000 for this.
They got the pitch on the financing down.
Yeah. Like we're all in here going, hey, I'll do it for 15. I'll do it for 14. I'll do it for 13.8. They're going, hey, I'll do it for $297 a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't seem, it's crazy.
Interesting.
That's just, people have that kind of disconnect with it. So I looked at that as a slippery slope of, man, I don't want to be perceived as the company that's taking advantage of people, charging them 4 times market rate for, a product or service, that they really should be able to they could find any of these local roofing companies to do it for a fourth of what they're paying. And so I was a late adopter, if you will, because I had this mental block, a limiting belief of like only con artists are using this tactic,
like
sell.
a payday loan kind of.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, predatory.
Yeah.
But I would say that market necessity has changed my mind on this, because we've had so many people throughout the years now who have just said, like, you have financing. And so like we always had financing available, but we never pushed it. It was just available. So if somebody said, hey, I only got $3,000 from my insurance company. Do you guys offer financing? Well, we've always had some sort of third-party financing partner that we could push them to do a loan. And then we would sell it for like the same amount that we would normally sell a roof, plus maybe whatever the merchant fee was. Now we have a lot better financing partners. We have better negotiated terms with them. And so I'm really trying to get people, like, now it's almost like, okay, let's be the same honest roofing company that takes care of people. Nothing changes about who we are, but let's sell to people the way they want to be sold and give them the freedom and really affordability that comes with being able to extend an expense out over time. And so it just becomes this requirement to me, or moral obligation, to say, okay, well, we now have to install the best quality roof like that we can, because if people are going to be paying for this roof over time, I don't want them
Totally.
buying. We got to break the market mentality of like, well, I just want the cheapest roof possible because I know that the hailstorm is going to damage it in the next 3 to 5 years anyway, and we're just going to get a new roof. Well, it's like, well, if you're financing it for 6, 7 years, you want that roof to last at least 6, 7 years, if not 10, 20 years, right? So it's like, we need to put you in a really high quality class 4 shingle. Let's make sure there are no corners being cut. The ventilation is optimized. We're setting you up for success for this roof to last as long as possible. And nobody's holding a crystal ball. And I can't promise you that we're not going to get baseball sized hail next year that's going to destroy whatever roof we put on. But we want to do everything in our power to at least put you in the best roof possible to withstand our normal year to year small hail storms that we get. So yeah, that's kind of that's the change. A long-winded answer of saying that's where we're moving. That's some of the changes we're doing is trying to move from a store kind of business to a retail business.
Yeah, yeah, that is a step I'm seeing it happen, like you said. Like it's a place where the industry is going out of necessity and the changes, and yeah, that's interesting. I like those insights. I also always have had access to the financing, never really pushed it.
Mm-hmm.
Know that, certain companies do that. So yeah, I think that's really useful food for thought for me and for listeners as you're pushing that quality now, right? Like, that's kind of part of your strategy. How are you reinforcing your communication and expectations around, that quality to your customers and through your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's an ongoing challenge of going, how do you, well, so training for one, right? We have a weekly sales meeting, sales training with our entire sales team. But one of the things that I'm leaning into this year is going to be producing content, doing more content like this. Honestly, on YouTube, I'll start filming YouTube videos. We've already started posting a few, but I want to do video sales letters essentially, where I could have like a YouTube playlist that will be almost like assignment selling, like required reading, required watching for our customers. Cause I think it's super powerful to say, okay, I can keep my fingers crossed that every one of my sales guys hits every single, that we want them, every topic we want them to cover in their sales process, and every single quality control measure, and, all the little bullet points we want them to hit. But realistically, how often you think that actually happens, and then you hear people say, like, if you could be a fly on the wall for your sales team's appointments, you'd be appalled. And so there's probably some truth to that, because how do you know? There's no way to know, because if I do go on a ride along with them, putting their best foot forward, right? If I'm
I
sitting
got
next to them, they're on it. They're gonna they're
I
gonna
got an
nail it.
idea for you. Ask me after this call about that.
Okay, yeah.
I do. I want to remember to bring it up.
Okay. So one of the things we've been thinking is like me pitching, and it's a way of me to do sales without doing sales, right? It's like, okay, I can run this through, I can film a video and do some evergreen content that lives on YouTube. Then my sales guys can assignment sell that to the client. Says, hey, if you'll, one of the things we want you to do is watch the 7 minutes of videos here. By doing that, you're going to be 10 times more prepared for our, meeting than the average homeowner. You kind of give them like a cool, and then they watch me talk them through, the process for seven
Love it.
minutes.
Love it.
And then they're like, oh, okay, cool. They understand the process now, what's next and the next steps, and they're hearing it from me. And so then it's like, we're streamlining that for every one of our clients to get that same message every
And
single time.
supporting your sales guys.
And it's supporting them.
It's
They
a
don't
good
have to
tool.
remember it.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
a good
that's
tool.
something that we're doing. And then, and then on the operations side, not just the sales side. So you got sales makes promises, but operations has to deliver on those promises. So then we've got on the operations side is we're actually in the process of changing over our CRM right now. And then we have an on-site project manager for every job. And so we've had to tweak the kind of sales to operations handoff, the production handoff. And that's been an ongoing, what's too much, what's too little, like we want a good handoff from salesperson, from contract to the production team, but then like if you make it too rigorous or too lengthy of a process, that they start checking the box on things and they're not really diving into it and looking at it. So that you're always constantly massaging that of like, hey, we want a repeatable, sustainable process, but it needs to be robust enough that it catches problems before they happen, but not so robust that you start glazing over things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, as Rome continues to grow, what are your areas of focus for improvement that you're most kind of honed in right now? You've talked about so many different things, so maybe it's all of it. Is there something that's like this is your focus right now?
So right now our focus is like we kind of broke it down by quarters. So we just kind of got out of our last quarter was discipline. We felt like we came out of a very big storm year in 2024. 2024 was insane. We had a crazy hailstorm in our backyard, and how that is in the roofing industry, like a good storm can make or break a salesperson. If you get the storm at the right time in your career, it can really like launch you to the next level. You get the storm in the, depending on who you are or whatever, you get the storm in the wrong part or however that shakes out for you, can spoil a good salesperson. Somebody that would normally be used to hustling just goes, oh, this is easy. My phone is just ringing off the hook. I'm getting all these leads. And so we had that in 2024. So 2025 was kind of a hangover, or 2025 was like a hangover year of like, hey man, like we're still working off of some of the ripple effects of that big storm, but also we've now spent almost 2 years where you guys didn't have to have your hustle brain anymore, where you didn't have to go out and prospect. So we're having to switch. So we literally spent an entire quarter on discipline, on like what are the daily, weekly, monthly habits like you need to be implementing. What's your ideal daily schedule? What's your ideal weekly schedule? What are your non-negotiables? How do you time block? Making sure you're actually out prospecting, and you're not just that. You got to do some hunting too, right? Like
Yeah,
we've got
yeah.
get so used to when the demand's coming in, they get used to being farmers. And so they're like, oh, I'll just go to the chamber events and the networking groups and doing these things and meeting people and making connections, but that doesn't drive revenue, right? Like in the short term. And so then when that demand kind of dries up, all of a sudden you got all these guys that are sitting around going, well, when's the next harvest? Yeah, I don't know. And it's like, I don't like being at the whims of a storm. Y'all don't like that either, right? Sales guys. So let me reteach you how to go prospect for business and to go out there and generate demand, because you've got a lot of people out there with wind damage on these cheap 3-tab roofs that builders continue to put on. You got to go out there and show them that there's a path forward for them to get a new roof, and it's worth it to invest in a quality roof. And without you bringing that to their attention, they're not going to do it. And so it might mean you need to go out and door knock. It might mean you need to go out and host a block party or whatever. But these these guys who haven't been doing those hustle activities for a while have just gotten into the busyness of order taking, that we got to like teach them how to be a rainmaker. So got out of the discipline phase. Now we're in growth phase. So it's like, okay, personal development growth. What things, bad habits have you taken on over the last year and a half through this storm that we need to shed? What are some good habits? What are some good characteristics and traits and things that you've learned about yourself that we can concrete into who we are and how we move forward? And then what are some skills that you think, like doing the mental exercise of saying, okay, if you could go back in time, what are things that now, or you wish you would have known prior to that storm, that would have set you up for success in an even bigger way? Okay. Because we're coming into potentially storm season this year. Like, let's get your mind right of going, what things do you need to be doing on a daily, weekly basis that are going to set you up for success for this next storm season, this next busy season for us?
Yeah, that's
Right
great.
now
That's so
we're just
valuable.
in slow season. We're in slow season right now. It's the winter. This
Yeah.
is the time that we're fine and fix your processes and get your mind right.
Absolutely. That's a great training platform program. This is good. And that's those kind of skills, that planning, that way to break down your life, your days. That's not everybody has those. And so to really train that, is really digging in. I like that. It's great. Well, we're I think we're running out of time here. I guess I just want to ask, after you're doing so much within your business and developing so many different things, what is your favorite part of running a roofing company right now?
Man, favorite part, I would say it's the challenge of, well, learning. I'm kind of like a nerd. So like there's there's a never ending supply of things that I could be better at. There's a never ending supply of shortcomings, right? That I look in the mirror and go, man, you should be better at this. Man, you should know more about this. And so I guess the best part about owning a roofing company to me is the constant look in the mirror of like, you have so much room to improve. You have so much to learn. And so it's a good reminder to like stay humble, hungry, and like just constantly go seek out mentorship. Like it's like run towards failure, just constantly running towards failure. That's like, I feel like what I'm doing, is going, okay, when something gets easy, that's the time to like push and challenge. Like it's the never allowing myself to be completely comfortable. Like, okay,
Mm.
well, if I'm not uncomfortable, then something is dying
Oh, that's so
because
great. I love that.
we're not
Yeah.
growing. So and that's probably my favorite part is the constant push to just be a better version of myself every day so that hopefully I can bring the company along with.
Yeah, well, that's high level shit, like go towards discomfort. That's where you
Yeah.
grow. I like that. I've had a similar mantra that I've done better at in different times of my life,
Oh,
and
for
then
sure.
other times where I get a little lazy with it. But it is that is actually a great note to end on because I think that's such wise words for people. Go towards discomfort.
Right.
Hey, thank you so much, John. That was a great chat. I think a lot of really useful information, and I imagine that listeners are gonna have a lot of food for thought there. So thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, super fun. Thanks for having me on board. Stay in touch.